Chapter 1811. Tian is a clean fox. Kara grabbed Tian from where he was napping in the tiny world and brought him to the meeting room. What's happening? Oh, good morning. Is someone injured? Ruth smiled. No, nobody is injured. You see, we're in need of a blacksmith, and Carl says that he can combine the skill into something amazing as long as one of his partners knows it. So, your sister has volunteered you. How would I be perfect for blacksmithing? Thor is the big and powerful one that is good with metal. You are literally a stone fur divine fox. It's right there in your name, and you have innate earth manipulation, while he's just using lightning to melt it. Of course, you're perfect. Tian gave Rue the most adorable of aggrieved looks. See how mean she is to me. Ever since we first met, and she tried to steal my most precious possessions, my sister has bullied me. How many times must I apologize for that? It was shiny, and I just wanted to take a look. Rue patted the little fox, and then stroked his soft fur. You've had it hard, little one. But if you learn blacksmithing, you can help make special items for Carl. Wouldn't that be better? Blacksmithing involves fire and hammers and soot. I don't like it when my fur gets dirty. You could transform. When you transform, all the dirt falls off. So, you would be perfectly clean in fox form. Tian considered it. Humans aren't as cute as foxes. Ruth smiled at Carl. He really had raised an adorably spoiled little fox. But she understood where Tian was coming from. Being cute was an important skill. How about this? We will ask Carl to make you as cute as a male Dana mage? She was a fox too, right? Rue hadn't seen Dana yet, but she was sure that Carl had already told her the basics of the story. And she wanted to see what sort of amazing skill he could make out of basic blacksmithing. If it were worth it, she would happily take a spot at the forge. And then, we can work at the forge together. If you want, you can even transform back, and I will take you for a bubble bath after the forge. That was definitely a win. She would get her own fluffy friend. Scales were great, but the Void Dragon had a strong affinity for fluffy things. She blamed the Forest Dragon who had taken her in for a while after she first failed to establish her clan. But really, it had started long before that. When she had first gotten to the immortal world, there were werewolves who turned into oversized canines for combat. The sect kept them collared and locked in wolf form, but some of them were friendly with her after they had fought together a few times. And they had fought together many, many times. Fine, I will take the skill, but Carl had better make it into something cool. If it's not at least runic blacksmithing, I'm not keeping it. Then, Tian considered his transformation options. He could do War Beast, Beast form, or Elemental Wrath. All of them would give him an alternate form. War Beast was just a slightly larger fox form, so that was out. Elemental Wrath was out, as it would just turn him into a big angry thing. Not cute at all. So, Tian reluctantly tried Beast form to see what he would look like as a demi-human. The tiny fox transformed into a teen boy, not more than 13 or 14 in human years, with fluffy white fox ears, long hair, and a puffy white fox tail. He created a mirror and examined his appearance. You're right, I do look a bit like the Dana mage like this. We've got the same ears. I wonder if the Carl's son will look like this one day. Kara smiled and winked at Tian. She knew the answer, but she wasn't sharing. She had gotten very good at hiding the memories of the glimpses of the future that she had seen from Carl so that she didn't mess up his decisions and change the outcomes that would lead to them. On the other hand, she loved to share her memories of the past. That was always entertaining, and she could reminisce with the others about all the fun things they had done. Tian used the skill book, and Carl got right to work making a better version of blacksmithing for Tian and Rue to work with. With the materials they had and the earth magic, they could make nearly anything that they needed for raw materials. And with the ability to turn basic raw materials into advanced magical items, they could make new weapons for the Immortals, which was the one thing that the Immortals valued the most. Many of them barely wore armor or accessories, but they all needed a primary weapon. Some of the sects even believed that strengthening themselves and their swords was the true path to supremacy. As they had actual supreme-ranked leaders, they might not even be wrong. Carl thought about what needed to be combined with blacksmithing to make something that was going to be cool enough for Tian. The fox wasn't going to want to swing a hammer all day. That was absolutely certain. So, Carl decided that it would be best to combine earth manipulation with blacksmithing and runecrafting, and then see where it went from there. Elemental Blade, Epic Grade Skill. Creates an indestructible runic weapon with the stats of an epic grade item at the caster's level. 1 mana per minute channeling cost. Compatible with Golem and Guardian type construct spells. Well, that was cool, and he was definitely going to teach it to Dana, but it wasn't the combination that he wanted. Perhaps he had focused too much on the earth manipulation part of the combination? That seemed like the answer. He knew that the combination should make an advanced crafting skill of some sort, not just a really cool combat ability. Chapter 1812, Divine Tion Forging. Carl focused on the other skills that he knew and decided to try adding a 4th skill to the mix, to see if that would bring it back into balance as a crafting skill. If not, he would reduce the influence of the others in the mix. Blacksmithing, with earth manipulation, runecrafting, and breath of the world seemed promising. Perhaps with a touch of Elemental's Wrath to balance affinity with the fire elemental abilities they would need in order to forge the items? Warning: divine crafting skills are unique in the world. Proceed? Full send, Kara shouted, while Tion stared at her in confusion, unsure what the phrase meant, and Rue rolled her eyes. The badger could clearly tell more of what was going on than the others. Well, what was the harm? Sure, he would have to make something different for Rue, but accepted. Trade skill upgraded, runecrafting, has been upgraded to ancient runeforging. That was not what Carl had been trying to do. And now he couldn't teach it to Tion. Divine crafting skills are unique. Follow me. Little one failed to transfer skill. Ancient runeforging. Well, that was a bust. Give me a moment, and I will find a way to make this work. Carl explained to the dragon. Trial and error is sometimes needed, she agreed. Carl felt a flood of new information entering his brain from the system panel. The energy was tinged with the familiar feeling of system energy that he knew came from the world dragon. Those 4 skills might have been overboard. First, he would have to start simple, and then he would teach Rue the skills to create the materials separately. That should be better. She wouldn't be able to use Breath of the World. It wasn't compatible with a Void Dragon. But he could combine blacksmithing with the runecrafting and give them runic blacksmithing, then hope that Rue could use earth manipulation. That should be enough. Or he could add Dark Flame to blacksmithing and a runecrafting, and he got Dark Fire Smithing. Dark Fire Smithing, epic grade crafting skill. Gains a bonus to death and Dark Flame element crafted items. Not quite what he needed. How about Sacred Light? Tion's most versatile skill for both healing and damage. Divine Runic Smithing, peerless grade crafting skill. May create holy weapons that will align to the user's faith, imbuing them with additional bonuses related to the aspects of the pantheon or god that the user follows. Ooh, I want that one. Give us both that one. Tion insisted. All right, that's the winner. I think that in the immortal worlds, you won't find a better option than this one. Tion cheered as the knowledge settled into his mind, and Carl crossed his fingers for luck as he patted Rue's head. Pet Sitter Carl offers knowledge skill. Divine Runic Smithing will be transferred to the unfortunate soul Rue. She really must have had a tough life if even the system called her an unfortunate soul. But she had been run out of everywhere that she had ever lived and failed repeatedly to settle down and create a home for herself. So it wasn't wrong. A divine crafting skill? Oh, peerless grade, but it specializes in divine items. That's just broken. And it's not blacksmithing, but blacksmithing is part of it. It looks like I can use it as a runecrafting type skill as well. You know, I looked into the texts on the topic, trying to learn how you did it, but I never found anyone who could actually use your skill. There were some who claimed they could, but they only knew a few words of the ancient runic languages, which let them make better items. It wasn't the same. Carl nodded. There are apparently a few. Clan leader Nerissa knows at least one. But one man in this entire immortal world is not going to be easy for anyone to track down, even in as many years as you've had. Don't feel bad about not finding the right person to learn runecrafting. Besides, now you've got something that can do what a basic runesmith can do, plus so much more. And it's perfect for dragons, since there are so many dragon gods. Making divine-aligned weapons for dragons will bump their innate powers to an immense degree. Their god and goddesses are literally part of their genetic makeup, so there will be no conflict at all. No wavering faith, no disloyalty to weaken the weapons. I think that it's the best that I could have come up with for you. Tion nodded. And I can just make the items. Combining the two skills is perfect.
Right.
I forgot the second part. Pet sitter Carl offers knowledge skill. Earth manipulation will be transferred to the unfortunate soul Rue. Rue smiled, and a blade leaking black energy appeared in her hand. Not death energy, but void energy, with a hint of the divine on it. Tion frowned. It wasn't that easy for him. Was she cheating? That was his skill. She shouldn't be better at it than he was. Rue laughed. It's just a basic holy weapon, aligned to the Void Dragon, a minor god that isn't officially part of the dragon pantheon. They're the patron of my species, but you can't sense them from the mortal worlds. You can do the same for a basic holy weapon aligned with the fox god. Tion focused for a second, and yes, he could. A simple glowing white sword appeared in his hand, aligned with the fox god. Kara laughed as she saw the bonus that the weapon granted. Blade of the Trickster God, Peerless Grade Holy Weapon. Usable only by followers of the Fox God and affiliated Chaos Gods. Causes holy damage on hit. The wound will appear to be in a different spot on the body than it actually is. That was just nefarious. You couldn't stop the bleeding without magic if you didn't know where the wound actually was. Chapter 1813. Put Tion to work. Should we have Opal make a proper forge for the two of you to work in? I'm sure that there are some requirements to actually work the metal if you're going to get the best quality out of it. Carl noted. Yeah, that might be necessary. I can make up to epic grade, with just pure magic. But if I'm going to make a peerless grade item using only my own magic and skills, I'm going to have to put in the work. Little Mr. Tion here as well, as much as I can see that he doesn't want to be anywhere near the actual forge, Rue agreed. Tion shrugged. They all knew how he felt about getting dirty. However, he was also highly driven to be helpful, and if he could make better items in the forge than simply creating them with runes on them, he would do that. With earth manipulation, he could already make pretty good items. But pretty good and top-of-the-line special stuff that would sit on the top shelf with pride were two different things, and if he couldn't do the second one, Sister Ray would make fun of him. Ray had strong feelings about making the very best items that you could, even if it was a hassle. She would even custom make items while a customer waited, just so that she could get the perfect shade for their skin tone. That's how far she was willing to take it, so Tion did feel a bit bad about not wanting to get dirty, knowing that he could just use a burst of magic or a barrier to clean himself off again. Opal appeared in the room with them and bowed politely to Rue, then spun in a full forward circle as she straightened, which made the dragon laugh. I will make you a forge upstairs in the crafting area. It will be wonderful, and I bet that you can recruit a few other blacksmiths to come work with you as well. Of course, you will have to teach them how to do it, but I'm sure that the Leakin Pack has at least a few who would like the job. You'll have to come with us then. I'm not Kara. I can't use your head pat skill. Tion reminded him. Ray has learned it too. Ray also enjoys giving head pats. They make people panic for a split second, thinking she's going to stab them in the head. Kara would not be at all shocked if that was really the reason. Kara could use it simply because she was Kara, and it caused chaos every time that it was activated. But it had been surprising that Ray had managed to learn the skill as well. Perhaps one day, Thor would also learn the trick so that he could imbue new skills onto his pack members. It seemed unlikely, as he would just turn to Carl for it, as anyone in the pack having it meant that the pack had it. But it could happen. Opal raced off to the second floor so that she could make the forge for them, and Carl rose to his feet. I should let you two get practicing. I have more items to sell, and the others are going to wonder what took us so long in here. They think that we're just haggling over a pair of rings. Rue laughed. Now that I think about it, didn't I just get swindled? I can make the rings that I bought. In fact, I can make better rings than I just bought, because I'm supreme ranked. Carl winked at her. If you want, I can refund you, and we can put them back up for sale later today. Then you can make yourself a fresh set. Rue shrugged. Don't worry about it. I will wear these for now, and save the supreme ranked gear for later. Turning out too many supreme ranked pieces in this region will cause an even bigger war than there already was, and I've just lost one clan. I can't take having it happen again. Carl nodded. I will tell the others that we're taking you in while you recover from soul damage. Nobody will question that, and they won't ask about your power level. It will also cover for why we were talking so long. Recruiting a new member, especially an injured one, is always a delicate process. Tian led Rue upstairs, while Carl returned to the front shop. Sorry for the delay, everyone. We had a few other matters to discuss. Now, who needed something special? He asked, while placing a few more peerless grade items up on the shelf to take the spots where the rings were. Not a problem at all. The goods will wait for you to come back, branch leader. A burly warrior replied, clearly doing his best to get on Carl's good side. Did you have a piece in mind? Or perhaps something from the other cases? We have a number of beautifully balanced epic grade items in stock. The warrior considered it. I think that I will actually go for 3 of the epic grade items. And then I would like to commission a custom piece. I would like a rapier is focused on fire elemental damage, made for a berserker. Carl considered the options. All right. Does he have a signature skill? And is he opposed to using transformation magic? You're thinking Elemental's Wrath? He has the skill and uses it often. After all, it's bonus fire damage to everything. Hawk laughed as he heard that in Carl's thoughts. That was a good berserker. All right, I know just the thing, though a rapier for a berserker is a bit odd. The warrior shrugged. It seems to suit him. He's not the super bulky berserker, he's the small and crazy sort of berserker. That makes perfect sense now. All right, I have a few partially finished rapiers in stock, and I can have something finished up for him at the peerless grade for tomorrow. Then I will take these 3 epic rings for my apprentices and pay the deposit for the custom piece. Tian would be happy. It was his first custom order. Chapter 1814. Rue makes the perfect gift. Tian saw the description of what the man wanted and sighed. There was no avoiding working at the forge if he was going to make a peerless rapier. However, he could make the basics and then just hammer out the impurities while adding the extra ingredients to purify the metal. He could make all the raw materials on his own. That wasn't the issue. It just needed additional processing that he couldn't do without the forge. Rue saw the order and hummed thoughtfully. You know, if this is a rapier berserker, why don't we add something fun to it? Sure, fire damage is what they wanted. But what if we also gave it an ability to increase agility and attack speed with every successful hit? Then the berserker would get even more berserk as the battle progressed. It would basically mimic the frenzy skill, without overlapping with similar skills that he might already have. Oh, that is wonderful. Super fast berserker sounds fun. We should make something for the Cuddle Bear as well. Cuddle Bear. Her name is Ophelia. She's a Werbear berserker who's almost to immortality. She is partnered with a green dragon cleric who became a beast master recently. They're so cute together. But she's a titanic berserker, like a gigantic bear, 10 meters tall. She was also super fast. The dragon laughed at the thought of an agility spec titanic bear totem berserker. It was ridiculous, insane, and hilarious. All right, I will work on something for her. Do you know what goddess she follows? No idea. I will have to get someone to ask. Tian sent a thought to Thor, who rumbled with amusement. Ophelia has taken to following the red dragon. She likes war and taking care of green dragon priestesses, so it was a good fit. Thor says the red dragon. All right, that's common enough for berserkers. They love battle, so the god of war is a good fit if they're not going to follow one of the beast gods. The bear god would have also been a good choice for Ophelia, Tian thought. But she had been influenced by her hyperactive fluff lover. With Lotus around, the extra nurturing of the red dragon was the direction she turned to. Rue focused on making a divine weapon for the berserker, something that would live with her until she was a supreme-ranked berserker. What sort of weapon does she usually use? Battle axe. 2 of them, but she also goes for the big one sometimes. Always an axe, though. Got it. I will make her a big one. I don't think it matters too much if she's fighting in full bear form, but in werbear form, it will. Rue got right to work making a divine weapon that would fit well with the needs of a werebear. At least, if that werebear needed an immense amount of agility. She wouldn't slack on the strength and damage, but the special effect would be to add agility every time she dealt damage. It was wonderfully suited to the followers of the god of war. The more they battled, the more they could battle. Not adding more damage, which could just lead to overkill. No, faster attacks so that they could engage in more battles in any given amount of time. It would greatly please the Red Dragon. While the two blacksmiths worked, Carl sold the majority of the items that were on the shelves and eventually realized that he was running low on stock for even the epic items. The Lycans had been working hard day and night, but they were still selling so many items that it was becoming impossible for them to keep up with the demand. Something would have to change. Or they were going to need to give bad news to some of the customers who came for acolyte bribes. The only question was what Carl could even do about it. Sure, he had Tian now, and the fox could make items very quickly, as he had magic to make them as he enchanted them. But that was still pushing the work onto one person instead of spreading it through the guild. He could try to get more skills to the rest of the members, giving the Lycans earth manipulation, but that skill wasn't going to work for everyone. It wasn't the sort of skill that was compatible with every class, and Carl was actually surprised that he didn't have to modify it to work with Rue. Though she was a mage class and they were known for being able to use a wide variety of elemental magic skills. So it was less of a bloodline affinity, and more thanks to her class that she could use it. The only real answer that he could come up with were the advanced epic golem stones. The ones that made a golem that could use a specific skill. If he made a few that could create the raw materials, and a few more that could use runecrafting, that would ease the strain. However, there was one large issue with that. More complex skills were nearly impossible to make functional on a magical item, even at the peerless quality. Giving them mystic cooking was difficult, but possible. Giving them earth manipulation wasn't any worse. But runecrafting, even the lower grade version of it, were on an entirely different level. They were considered to be a form of divine crafting skill, and the amount of magical writing that went into inscribing them was astronomical. That was why he never made books to teach them to anyone. It simply wasn't feasible. You either learned it directly with "Follow me, little one," or you didn't get it at all. And that was how it had been essentially lost to time. If too few people knew it, and they were all lost in the same battle, there would be no way to recover the skill. There were no written copies, no backups. Nothing that people could base their attempts to recreate the skill on. So, he was going to have to work with what he had, and apologize later for the stress that he was putting the guild under to keep up with demand. Chapter 1815. Don't overwork the fluff. Tian frowned as he realized what he had gotten himself into. He was not the group member that liked to do deep and technical things. Sure, he could do wonders designing new buildings with earth manipulation, but that was different. Nobody cared if the tiny details were off. They didn't mind if things weren't perfectly aligned. But when he was making runic items, there was no room for error. Even the slightest of differences in depth would reduce effectiveness at best and cause a complete failure at worst. And he hadn't started with the easy things. The number of runes that he was expected to put on this weapon were over 10,000, and they all needed to be perfectly arranged on the proper parts of the weapon for maximum synergy. The knowledge was there in his brain, but he had to do all the calculations, and that was not fun at all. It was a good thing that Rue was making a weapon for Ophelia, because Tian was definitely going to use that to shamelessly bribe Lotus into giving him a bubble bath and blow-drying his fur with a head massage at the end. He deserved it after making his brain hurt doing this thing for a stranger. Tian sketched everything out twice, making adjustments so that he could get the proper effect. It wasn't easy to get that stacking agility just right. The first few times he planned it, the interaction with the other runes would make a constantly reapplying agility buff, not a stacking one. And that was just worthless. Finally, Tian had the weapon just how he wanted it, and he could create the actual rapier. Making it with the runes on it was easiest. Then he would imbue it with energy, and then add the elemental gem he had prepared that would add Dark Flame's corrosive debuff to the fire damage dealt by the weapon and fire skills channeled through it. That was Hawk's request. In the end, Tian was fairly sure that the first item he was going to make would be nearly perfect. It had all the things. Bonus to fire damage, added fire damage, better fire damage, and an agility buff that stacked with every hit. The faster that the attacker was, the better that the weapon would be. What Tian hadn't factored in was that this weapon would stack agility with every hit. Not every hit on a single target. Every hit. Dana watched the weapon forge with great interest, already planning to have Rue make her a new sword once the dragon was finished with the axe for Ophelia. Sure, it might be shameless to put their new supreme-ranked guild member right to work making new weapons for the core members, but she really wanted one of those weapons. Agility would be good, but if she could have it add construct damage every time that she dealt damage, the amount of punishment that her golems could output would be absolutely ridiculous. Of course, she had other ideas about what might work well on items, now that she knew such a stacking ability was possible at the Peerless grade. It certainly wasn't possible when Carl was weaker, or he would have tried it by now. Honestly, Carl wasn't sure that it would work even now, until Tian actually completed the item. His first attempts would have been similar to Tian's, and he would have seen the constantly refreshing buff as an annoyance. But only when you were deliberately trying for this specific outcome would it seem like a failure. A self-refreshing buff was still very good. Tian heard her thoughts, and began planning a way to get both. Dana had auto-parry, which applied to all her golem-type summons. And if they were faster, they would parry even better. If they also stacked damage, it would be hilariously overpowered. He would sketch out the outline until he was certain that it was right, and then he would give it to Rue to make for the Dana Mage. If they could make the Dana Mage overpowered enough, she would be able to do all the Carl-type things. That would make Tian's life much less hectic. If the Carl kept taking them to do things, their tasks were constantly changing, and his naps kept getting interrupted. But if the Dana Mage could just walk in and clear dungeons on her own, then he would end up stuck in the forge making gear. Damn it. Having a trade skill now was going to doom him to a life of boredom and dirty fur. Rue saw the tiny fox's internal conflict and gently stroked his head with her free hand as she tweaked runes on the axe that she was making for Ophelia. "What's on your mind, little friend?" Tian nearly purred as she found the perfect spot at the back of his ear. This Rue dragon was good. "I just realized that now I have to work all the time, not just when the Carl needs to do dungeons." Rue laughed. "They're not going to buy weapons that expensive all the time. It's more than most clans can afford. Most of what you're going to be asked to do is the epic grade weapons and accessories. You and I can both make them with a thought and even imbue them with divinity so they will grow with the user and align to their deity's power. That's better than anyone else is selling at the epic grade, and we can make 100 at a time if we want. You won't be worked too hard." That assured Tian that there was hope for his future. At least a little bit of it. But now that she mentioned it, he had never seen a weapon like the ones that they could make, and the longer someone used them, especially when they had a strong bond to the divine, the stronger the weapon would get. That was one of the usual side effects of divinity on items. So, they really could make a specialty of creating the easy items. That was wonderful. Chapter 1816. And for the Dana Mage. Then Tian remembered that there was a request for him to make, since he was here. "If you're done with the one for the Cuddlebear, can you make one for the Dana Mage? With all the fast and the same thing for stacking golem damage." Rue considered it. "I can likely do that. What sort of weapon does she like?" "Swords with only one sharp side." Rue nodded. There were many options in that category, including the rapier that Tian had just made. But she suspected that what he meant was a longer, slightly curved blade, or a staggered set, with one sword and a short sword that was little more than a dagger. She was familiar with both, as she had millennia of combat experience on the battlefields of the Immortal Realms when she first arrived. If there was a weapon that she wasn't aware of how to handle properly, she would honestly be shocked. That sort of thing simply didn't happen. But that was also part of the reason that the other Supremes had ganged up on her. Her sect was too versatile and lacked proper backing to support its position. Carl had made the right choice to align himself with the new Home Merchant clan and the Blackwoods pack at the same time. That was 2 guaranteed Supremes on his side, 3 now that she was here. With 3 Supremes in the tight alliance, there weren't many who would dare to attack them, even if she was in hiding. The word would get out that there was a Supreme-ranked crafter in the guild, and until someone could verify who it was, they would be cautious. The only condition was that until everyone was sure of who she was, she couldn't tag weapons with her name. Instead, She would encourage the system to mark them as created by the Darklight Host Guild, instead of created by Supreme Lady Rue. That should be enough to keep everyone guessing. The one that she made specifically for Ophelia had her name on it, so that the Whirlbear would properly appreciate the craftsmanship that went into making the perfect weapon for her. But the ones to be sold to strangers would be better anonymous, to promote the guild's power. The stronger the reputation of the guild, the safer her own life would be. Rue had faith in Carl. The man was a force of nature even when she met him 10,000 years ago, and he was definitely more powerful now. If there were more than a few people in the lower immortal ranks who could keep up with him, it would be considered divine intervention, which was more than just a joke in the immortal realms. The gods really would get involved if someone started to get too far out of line, sending their own supporters to suppress the one that was throwing things out of balance. Only with immense power could any immortal, or even a supreme, survive that sort of targeted oppression. During her early years, commonly known on her world as the Demigod Wars, it was a constant thing. Everyone suffered under it, and everyone knew that you had to take measures to avoid having it happen to you directly. Simply being too close to someone who was targeted could be a death sentence. So, Rue got right to work on the sword for the one known as the Dana Mage, which she suspected was just beast speak for a mage named Dana. The followers of the beast gods had odd naming conventions, and tended to view outstanding individuals as their own species entirely. She was actually spot on. Hawk had a terrible time with names, especially when he was young. So, his use of the Carl and the Dana Mage had stuck as more people entered the team. Everyone in the Darklight hosted it now, and even the system tagged him that way, so other people he met, complete strangers, addressed him that way. Dana thought that it was hilarious, even if it was sometimes annoying that people called her the Dana Mage, as if it was some sort of weird title or class name, not her own given name. Dana caught a mental glimpse of Rue starting to make a weapon for her, and she smiled with admiration at Tion's blunt and shameless way of pleading for the very best of the good stuff for his friends. Not only that, but he did it while convincing the dragon to pet his head. The little fox might be shameless, but he had skills. What was really bothering Dana was that the royal family of Gthuzin were all shadow dragons. But Rue was a void dragon. From what she had learned, Rue was a princess, and should have been born a shadow dragonkin. So, how had she ended up as a void dragon? Was it something like how Kara had evolved, going from a void badger to a chaos badger? A related subspecies that better suited her powers as she advanced? Or had she done it on purpose to optimize her powers? It was certainly possible to evolve your species, but for a royal dragon, one who had been an immortal empress, it seemed strange. Even if she had done it later. That wasn't really something that you could just ask someone, though. Progression details were generally considered intensely personal, much like asking about someone's secret skills. And, while Rue remembered Carl from her childhood, Dana had not even properly met the dragon yet. Eventually, they would have to sit down for a long chat, so that she could catch up on all the little details that Carl forgot to ask about. A proper girl's talk. In her space, Kara was doing her best to hide her amusement. Dana saw the dragon as potential competition, but even after thousands of years, Rue hadn't gotten over the death of her first husband, and she had no intentions of trying to steal anyone else's. She might have shared him, but she had never forgotten him. Chapter 1817. Gathering Supremes. With the custom order now finished, Carl added it to the store's inventory, in the pre-purchase section, so that nobody would sell it, even if someone requested exactly that same weapon. It normally wouldn't be an issue, as he was the one that stocked all the peerless grade weapons for the store, and he handled almost all the negotiations for them. But better safe than sorry. Carl had just settled into the sales spot at the front of the store when a familiar pair of visitors came calling. "Branch leader, might we have a moment of your time? We both felt an odd presence here, and the pack leader has some questions," clan leader Narisso insisted. "Yes, I would imagine that you do. If you would like to follow me, I will have refreshments brought." Instead of bringing them to the back room of the store, Carl led them directly up to the second floor, where Tion and Rue were working on new weapons. Tion was creating generic holy weapons that would grow with their wielder, and Rue was working on the blade for Dana. "Clan leader, pack leader, this is Supreme Lady Rue, our newest guild member. She is an old friend of mine, and through an odd quirk of fate, I was her mentor during her childhood. So, when she found us here, she quickly agreed to join the Darklight host and become one of our resident experts on weapons crafting. The two other Supremes watched Rue finishing the runes that she was adjusting, and then paused as she smiled easily in front of them. Normally, a strange Supreme in someone else's territory would be on edge. They did not share well. But this one looked right at home, and the pack leader suspected that despite the difference in power levels, she actually had some level of loyalty or debt to Carl. Good day, everyone. I am Rue Gthuzin, wandering cultivator, and now a divine blacksmith. I have specialized in making advanced runic weapons and items attuned to the faith of the wearer. It's a pleasure to meet you both, Clan Leader Nerissa, Pack Leader Blackwood. Nerissa frowned. You are quite polite. But I still have concerns. What is your purpose in coming here? Are you intending to set up another clan in the region? The new home merchant clan already has an outpost here in the city, and we would need some sort of notification if that is the case. Rue waved her hand dismissively. I tried that once in the past. It's not for me. I am happy to remain within the Darklight host. Carl is the branch leader, and I have no intention of changing that. I believe Elder Blackwood understands the urge to be a less active participant in pack politics. The aging Leakin nodded, and Carl noticed that his old injuries really were nearly all healed. He was near the peak of his power again, a supreme-ranked powerhouse, no weaker than clan leader Nerissa. Of course, Carl also noticed that their scents were intermingled. They had been closer than simply training in the same room. The old Leakin laughed as he noticed Carl noticing. Mind your business, Junior. It's all for the sake of professional growth. I didn't say a word. Nerissa rolled her eyes. See, this is why I haven't been spending time around the Lycans. They're all going to notice, aren't they? The pack leader shrugged. If they're in the same room, it's impossible for them not to. Carl winked at the clan leader. There's no shame in it. I'm a married man, and Lady Rue is a widow. It's not like we've never come out smelling like our partner. At the workbench, the boy that was Tion's humanoid form laughed. You smell like Dana all the time, even if you haven't been together. It's part of the soul bond. Nerissa ignored the little fox. So, you're just planning to remain here in the background and work as a weaponsmith? Not to become an active part of the clan's public front and known power base. Exactly. It hasn't been that long since the other regional clans around my old home teamed up on us. It's better if I lie low for a century or two, just so my presence doesn't bring trouble to the Darklight host. I may be old friends with the branch leader, but my clan did not go down easy. How bad was it? Rue's eyes went vague for a moment as she reminisced. I would rate it a 7 out of 10. Rue's evil smirk gave Nerissa a moment of concern, but the pack leader had a sudden insight. You are Rue Gthuzin, former clan leader of the Gthuzin clan. Gthuzin's war goddess. I didn't realize that you were a void dragon and not a red dragon. You killed 7 of the 10 clan leaders of the Ornanchar Alliance when they came to claim your territory. And my entire clan paid with their lives. I fled the Velalan League after the battle, and I've been wandering since. I heard that Carl had some interesting things up for sale, and as all my gear was lost in the battle, damaged beyond repair, I came to see what I could get. Then I realized who was running this branch and agreed to stay on. Those words caught Ray's attention. If there was someone here who had gotten a known nickname for being extra lethal, she needed to meet her, even if the Void Dragon didn't seem like the bloodthirsty sort. Unfortunately, she was busy right now, in the middle of a custom fitting to make a new wardrobe for one of the new home's elders. Only when she was finished with that could she head over to the guild house to chat with their new member. She should bring the Tessa. Tessa was an immortal now, and they both apparently served the Red Dragon. Or at least had a good relationship with her, as Ray seemed to recall that Rue served the Void Dragon. There were layers to her, like peeling a carcass or an onion. Chapter 1818, Creation Aura. You hide well. We didn't even notice that you were here until you made a supreme-ranked weapon. The elders of the pack noticed and called the pack leader so he could get first dibs on the item if it was something that suited him. Rue laughed. Well, I can certainly make one that suits him. However, The ones that I've already made are for the ladies of the guild. Gifts to celebrate their advancements. I will start making items for the rest of the guild soon, and that will naturally start with the pack leader. And yourself as well, clan leader. I understand that the Darklight host and the new home merchant clan have a tight alliance, and it wouldn't do to make you wait when supreme ranked craftsmen are so rare. And that's exactly why the appearance of a newly created supreme ranked item within the guild house caught the attention of the others. The barriers likely kept the others in the store from noticing, but they're not set to block the senses of the Darklight host members. Rue realized what had happened. She had thought that this room was fully shielded to keep the residual shockwaves and energy pulse from affecting the outside world. But it was open to the perceptions of the guild. So, even with the fluctuations contained to the room, they would still sense it. In the future, she would ask Tion if there was somewhere even more secure for them to make items that they actually wanted or needed to keep a secret. If Carl could make a place like this guild house, he could certainly make a private crafting space separate from everything else. Of course, if she had just asked, Tion would have taken her to one of the many such spaces they had, so that outside interference didn't distract the workers. It was just an oversight on his and Carl's part that they had been doing it in the main room of the crafting section and not somewhere more private. Rue's words had caught Nerissa's attention. You speak as if you have the materials to make a number of supreme-ranked weapons. Did you manage to salvage something from the attack? I had heard that they looted everything that was left in your compound. Rue shrugged. I had some things with me, as is natural. But mostly, it's that Carl taught me young Mr. Tion's earth manipulation skill, and that let me create the basic core of the weapon without the need to farm and harvest supreme-ranked metals. It's not perfect, but with the right buffs, I can still make high-quality weapons with minimal farming. All that I need are the elemental stones, and some of the rare materials that earth manipulation won't make. But if you're willing to accept strictly buffs that can be done with stone and metal items, then I'm much less limited. Of course it was Carl. If anyone was going to cause this level of casual disruption of social norms, it had to be the avatar of the world dragon.
Carl leaned over to Tion.
Do you think that she means that as a compliment or not? 50-50. She doesn't look too mad about it. The little fox giggled and Nerissa smiled. It was clearly an insult, but one that Carl wouldn't actually be upset about, because he knew perfectly well that his actions disrupted the world around him, and he simply didn't care. Nerissa winked at the little fox. I think that nobody will be mad, even if the options are greatly limited. Getting peerless grade immortal items is already exceedingly rare. The chance to obtain a supreme-ranked relic is a once-in-a-lifetime existence for most immortals. That's how infrequently they're traded. Even those who have the skills usually only make items for themselves and their direct disciples. So, if Miss Rue wants to sell off a few to support the guild, you're already far ahead of the other guilds and clans on this continent, who would never dare to do such a thing. The item would be held as a precious relic to bolster the power of their future generations of leadership, especially for the combat sections. Their members die on an alarmingly frequent basis. Rue nodded. They're the ones dragging down the average lifespan of immortals. Most of them still allow contests to the death to decide which of the top disciples in the region get precious resources. They're insane, but they do turn out highly skilled combatants, so people keep doing it, even knowing that they have as much of a chance of being killed in a tournament as they do of ever making it to peak immortal. And that's not even counting all the ones that will be killed while out trying to gather resources on their own. Tion laughed. Killed while out collecting resources? Nope, can't imagine how that could happen. Never saw any of their disciples. We've been out here alone for days. Nerissa laughed, and Rue ruffled his hair. Your brothers have been teaching you bad habits, haven't they? That made Carl laugh. It was 100% his sisters who had taught Tion that line. Thor would never utter a bald-faced lie like that, and Hawk didn't really speak to outsiders. Leo might, he had a sense of humor, but he was also their newest brother. The three Supremes all turned to the giggling badger. Right, it's probably his sisters. How does that happen anyhow? Aren't the testosterone-driven ones supposed to be the most violent? Rue asked. Thor is a herbivore, Hawk is antisocial, Tion is too fluffy to be threatening, and Leo is too young. But Sister Ray is one of the eldest, and she's highly fond of stabbing people to collect their corpses, Kara offered. So, you blame the spider? Actually, I think that I'm the one who told someone that we hadn't seen the members they'd come looking for, so this time it's probably my fault. But I wasn't the one who killed most of them. Actually, I think the incident in question might have been because they attacked Dana, so it's still one of the sisters. We haven't really wandered the wilderness much, but the people have been incredibly rude. Rue nodded. That's how it is. I will tell you more about it later. Chapter 1819. Dancing Blade. Having sensed the potential for Carl to get himself in trouble without a responsible adult around to keep him under control, Dana came into the crafting room to join the conversation. Sect leader, pack leader, it's a pleasure to meet you both again today. Rue waved happily at Dana. I'm just finishing this sword for you. Let me know what you think of it. Dana took the sword and examined it. Dancing Blade of the Dana Mage, Supreme Ranked Peerless Grade. Holy Weapon, this weapon's stats will grow with the user's power and faith. Increases agility by 400% of base. Increases base agility by 800. Increases spell power by 5000. Increases spell damage by 300% of base. Every hit increases agility by 5% of the user's unmodified total for 30 seconds. Divine bonus. Strikes with this blade apply the Falling Plum Blossom Petals spell effect. Dana stared at the blade in horror. Falling Plum Blossom Petals was a finishing move that applied 1,000 flower petal cuts on the target. Even if it only triggered in close combat, and not on every spell, that was absolutely broken. And then there were the bonuses. It was like the dragon had simply thrown every possible bonus into a two-handed weapon. She would call it a sword, but it was actually created with a collapsible haft, so it could be used as a two-handed blade instead of a Guandao-style polearm. This way, it can be everything that you need it to be. If you've got the strength, you can even use it one-handed, thanks to the counterbalance. But the large blade with a hooked back shape is perfect for catching blades, and the curved lower blade has the weight to cut through nearly anything, Rue announced proudly. I see that you gave it spell power and spell damage separately. Rue nodded.
Yep.
Golems don't use spell damage, they use spell power. So, doing it this way gives you a bonus to the golems without costing you much bonus damage on spells that don't scale well with spell power. But the real advantage should be when you attack a large group. All those attacks will make you nearly invincible with auto parry. Dana laughed. I'm nearly invincible already, thanks to Carl and the beasts sharing buffs. With limited invulnerability and void body for regeneration, it's very difficult to hurt me. Ooh, I love that one. I have the void body skill as well. The regeneration skill that it grants really is insane. If they can't damage the immortal spirit, it's nearly impossible to permanently injure someone with it. Unfortunately, the more powerful you get, the more likely your opponents will be to have a method to counteract your defenses. That sort of versatility is the only way that most of them survive to Ascended Immortal. Dana sighed. Every aggressive immortal that I meet outside seems to be a blithering idiot. Seriously, thinking that they can kidnap me, going on long monologues detailing their plans before attacking, how one of them tried to kidnap Ray. The two leaders laughed, while Rue looked confused. Ray is the blood destruction demonic spider, Carl elaborated. Someone wanted to kidnap the spider? I can understand immortals doing plenty of strange things, but not even the feet people would try to capture a blood destruction spider. Dana snorted, attempting to hold back her laughter. It sounds like you hold a grudge. Oh, I definitely do. But that's a story for another day. I suspect that our friends in the clan leadership are going to make a very polite request for me to make something shiny again. I've still got to drop off an axe for the one that Tion calls the Cuddle Bear, but after that, I'm free to make a few more divine weapons. The pack leader laughed. It's not that big of a deal. Just make us something with a bunch of skill power and strength, plus the adaptive holy bonus, and call it good. I'm a devout servant of the moon goddess, and I had expected to become her avatar before Lucille became a wolf lord. Plus, it's not challenging for something made with your skills to be better than what I'm using. After a lot of lean years, I've sold off most of my relics to keep the pack afloat. Now, it's finally starting to pay off, with the crafters in the pack. But none of them are supreme. Nerissa shrugged. No need to go overboard on my account. If too many supreme weapons start to appear, it's going to cause questions I don't feel like answering. However, if you can make a trash item, rare grade at best, we could use it as a gift for the best performer at the recruitment tournament. You know how the elders like to show off. Carl handed Rue a Villa stone, and the dragon rolled it around in her hand, examining the runes. Oh, this is pretty good. Rare grade, but so useful that it would be a clan cultivation treasure for nearly any sect. Even those obnoxious brats from the Almixii sect would drool themselves dry over it. Nerissa winked at Carl. You found an interesting one this time. I know that she's not as new of an immortal as you are, but she seems to have a pretty good grasp on people's natures as well. Rue rolled her eyes. That man, I raised his mother, and look what gratitude he showed the moment that he reached supremacy. But I don't actually hold a grudge. I'm just not a people person. That's good news. They're an incredibly dominant sect, even if the new sect leader isn't as powerful as the last few were. How new is the sect master? Did they just transition leadership? Dana asked. I suppose it's been 500 or 600 years? Nerissa replied with a shrug. Never mind. I forgot that most immortals have a very different sense of time than I do. Chapter 1820. Not as fancy, but practical. Rue surged with mana, and 2 elegant blades appeared in her hands. They're not as fancy as what the Dana mage got, but they're good enough to be called epic. Nerissa held up the blade, examining the stats, then bowed politely and put it away. That will do wonderfully. I will be in a much better position next duel with that in my hand. Then, Rue made a direct copy of the Villa stone, but with a supreme ranked barrier around it, so the stone was bumped up a rank without actually getting any better, except at keeping strangers out. Nobody would ever know the difference anyhow. You can have that as the grand prize. Nobody will show you up this year, that is for certain. Do you know who is going to get the top contenders? Almixii, with a 90% likelihood. If not them, we're the most likely second choice. It just comes down to who wins in the end. If it's one of the druids, then we've got a pretty solid chance. But if it's a blade master or a mage, they're likely going to go for the resources. Well, it's a shame to lose such a good item, but it will show the others in the competition that we're serious about being able to provide resources. That should keep at least a few from being poached, Carl agreed. Of course, everyone and their dog has already been to see you about obtaining the bribes to steal the recruits with. I don't even know if that counts as a win or a loss. An epic grade item is a lot of profit, but if we lose too many of the recruits, we're going to be in a tight spot this year. The members have been working hard to get apartments ready for the next wave. The Leakin pack leader shrugged. If they sit empty for 1 year, it's not the end of the world. Everyone knows that your compound took damage in the battle, so they're not going to hold it against the new home if you take in fewer members than usual. Nerissa nodded. It's more a matter of pride. We host the regional recruiting event. Almixii shows up to steal the top seed, but they only hold their own event every 5 years, so they're just filling themselves with geniuses at our expense. Carl laughed, and the Supremes all turned to look at him. Did you forget? We've got the class change obelisk now. I don't know if the visitors have noticed yet, but there are going to be a lot of recruits looking like geniuses if they stay in the new home. Nerissa winked at him. Oh, they've noticed. However, we've marked it off limits unless you're a sect leader or on particularly good terms with an elder. Everyone else has to wait until after the event to come back and try to buy a turn at the stone. It's made us quite popular. But we don't want them all advancing and making themselves look better before the recruitment. Maybe next year, but not so soon after we have received it ourselves. There are still clan members working on skills to try for better classes. We can't have outsiders getting ahead of them.
Carl couldn't argue with that.
The World Dragon didn't care who used it. You would get the class that you had earned. But from a practical standpoint, letting others use it to get ahead of the local members months after they had been attacked would just make the new home look like suckers. With all the considerations, Carl understood why clan leader Nerissa was such a high-stress person. It seemed unavoidable once you reached a certain point of power, though. Unless you could tuck yourself in under the protection of another Supreme who was willing to do the public relations work and put on the friendly face for the clan, you simply had to live in the world of Supreme-ranked politics. It hadn't worked out well for the Blackwoods pack, and it hadn't worked out well for Rue either. Hopefully, that would turn around now that they were all together under the umbrella of the Darklight Host and the New Home Merchant Clan. At the very least, the appearance of new items made by their members should make others reconsider the hidden strength of the clan. Once they saw that Villa Stone, clearly marked as being made by the Darklight Host, they would have to wonder if Carl had received it from the Supremes who came to assist in the last battle, and if one of them might have remained here in the region. Mind games might be Ray and Kara's specialty, and Opal's entire livelihood, but Carl was at least capable of thinking that far ahead. Dana, on the other hand, was still staring at her new sword with a level of reverence that Carl wasn't certain he had ever seen from her before. It really was a good sword. Finally, she put the weapon away and focused on the other things that hadn't been addressed. You said that there was another weapon for someone? Was it Tessa? The Red Dragon Clerics that just advanced? Rue shook her head. No, I will make her an advancement gift later. Tion asked me to make one for Ophelia. We had a custom order that was perfect for her. Tion nodded and held up the one that they had made for the customer. A rapier with stacking agility. I see where you got the inspiration for my weapon now. Yeah, only we made hers as a big axe. It's going to be spectacular when she finally gets to use it, Tion agreed. His expression was so innocent that Dana couldn't help but laugh. Clearly, Tion had no idea of just how immensely broken and overpowered that weapon buff was. He just thought that it would be funny to see an incredibly fast giant bear. You know, being exposed to high-rank items in your inventory is one way to help push someone up through the ranks. The aura of the weapons, especially holy weapons, is like a growth charm that continually fills the body with energy. Sounds like the Blade of Champions and the Hangclaw. Hawk noted, listening in on the conversation.
It did.
It really did.